Here we are, back again for another Stephen Avery episode. Calling this one More Questions Than Answers. So I wanted to start this one off, by saying, was the key for the RAV4 in the RAV4 when it was found on Avery salvage yards? There was no pictures of the interior when it was found. So we don't know if the key magically turns up in Stephen's trailer only because it was already in the RAV4 when it was found, which is, highly suspicious because, you'd figure you'd want to document that scene when it was found on Stephen Avery's property as much as possible. But again, the only pictures I can seem to find are either ones of the exterior or ones that Pam Stern took. The famous lady who found the RAV4, in a miraculous time. So that's my question. Was the key in the RAV4 and then simply planted, in Stephen Avery's trailer? And then, the other thing too that was strongly said in a lot of these videos that I watch and stuff is that the doors at the Avery property of the RAV4 were tried. People tried to open them. So if they tried to open them and they all say that the doors are locked, and it left right from the Avery property to the crime lab, which we all know, according to various sources, that it took them way longer than it rightfully should have from the Avery salvage yard to get it to the crime lab down in Madison. So, what was, the big question there is what was done in that time that it took to get it there. But then if we're to, again, many people testified that the doors were locked, including Ertl, who was the lead forensic investigator from the crime lab, apparently. He said, yes, all the doors were locked. All the doors were also locked when it arrived at the crime lab. But then Ronald Graffey, who is the photographer, the one asked to come take photographs of the RAV4 at the crime lab the next day, which would have been the 6th of November, he said he arrived there, took some photos of the outside of the RAV4 in the crime lab garage, and he said he went to the driver's side door, opened it up, and then proceeded to unlock the other doors. Well, if it was locked through all that time, why isn't there any documentation of who unlocks the car? You'd figure that there'd be some sort of document saying, hey, so-and-so from this tow company or so-and-so from the crime lab used this tool or this instrument to unlock the vehicle. And there wasn't. There just simply wasn't. There isn't any documentation. And if there is, we haven't seen it. And then as far as finding the RAV4, there's a report saying that there was 5 girls who thought they found a RAV4 on the Avery property within hours of Pam Stern finding the RAV4. So what's up with that report and what was up with that RAV4? It's never really said. Another thing is, my belief of the VIN plates being tampered with, the photo, the photo that everyone sees, it doesn't appear in the photos that the VIN plate was tampered with. I believe that was just a narrative that had to be spun, to make it look as though Stephen was in it or guilty, because, he's a mechanic, he would know that that VIN number would be something that could, be tied to Teresa's, vehicle. So that, I believe, is just part of the narrative. to make it sound like Stephen Avery, is without a doubt, responsible for this. My next thing is, why was Jody questioned before Brendan? He hadn't been questioned intensively yet. It was, watching that interrogation of Jody, it was almost like they were trying to get information that, she would have, but that would have been irrelevant because she was in jail. And, I'm pretty sure Stephen was smart enough to know that, the phone calls would have been recorded. So even if he did do it, he wouldn't say anything to Jody. And then the other thing that baffled me was, I don't remember if it was Fassbender or Wiegert questioning her. I think it was Wiegert and a female detective. And they kept asking about her sex life with Stephen, which was like, completely irrelevant. I mean, they, like I said, they hadn't talked to Brandon yet, so they had no inclination that Teresa was assaulted sexually. So what was the point of that? Just to rile her up and turn her against Stephen, which she eventually did, which I believe is also suspect, because after she got out of jail, she was on probation, and I believe that basically her probation and people in that field may have basically told her, hey, either you talk bad about Stephen, or we're going to throw you back in jail. And if you think Wisconsin isn't corrupt enough to do that, they definitely are. Let's see some other points here. Why, if there's nothing in the RAV4 that's going to free Stephen, and it makes him look guilty, why won't they let Zellner, Kathleen Zellner, look at the RAV4? Do they even still have the RAV4? I mean, why not? And then you got Ken Kratz's narrative about why the battery was disconnected. He said Stephen disconnected the battery because Stephen knew that if there had a key fob, they could push the buttons on it and make the lights light up or the alarm go off. Well, the thing there is number one, if Stephen had the only key, which was a spare key, you would assume that maybe Teresa lost the key fob. So, he wouldn't know there was a key fob necessarily. So disconnecting the battery would have nothing to do with that. And then, again, that was just more of a narrative spun by Ken Kratz to make you believe that Stephen was really, really guilty. The RAV4 battery, it was said that was not the right battery for the RAV4, which, I can see where that would be a concern, and I can see where it wouldn't be a concern. Maybe she was, like everybody said, maybe she was in a bind and just put a battery in there. I've done that with some of my own vehicles. But my big question is, was the battery itself, was the battery cables, were those ever tested for DNA? I heard they were tested for DNA. But as far as like prints, I mean, you'd figure if you put in a battery into a vehicle, the way you would have to grab the battery, much like this, you put it in the car, you're going to be messing with it while it's in the car, there'd be prints all over that battery. The key, while it was tested when it was found, it said that it didn't turn the vehicle over. But yet, let's just surmise that really wasn't the key. You can stick a key, some keys, from as long as it's the same model vehicle, they had another RAV4 or they had another RAV4 key, that's all it would take. And you could turn, the key will go in and potentially it can turn, it just won't turn the car over. But then again, I don't know enough about RAV4s to make that assumption. But it was, then finally, when they actually did test the key to turn it over, it was almost a year later. You know, why a year later? That just doesn't make any sense to me. And then Teresa's bones. They find the bones, and this has always just been a mind-boggling thing for me. So they find these bones in Stephen's fire pit, and I get, their narrative is, oh, the bones are degraded, blah blah blah. But their narrative says that, okay, we find them, we test them. It's not that they are Teresa's bones. It's that Teresa cannot be excluded. I mean, if Teresa really is, gone, because there's some speculation about that even too. But if Teresa really is gone, you'd figure whatever you did get back from the crime lab as the speaking of her family, whatever you did get back, you'd want to be your daughter's. You'd want it to be. So there's, we're in 2023. This all went down, 2005, 2006. Science is ever improving. Wouldn't you want to know? I mean, honestly, I can't answer them because I really don't know. But I mean, if the situation was in my ball or my court rather, sorry, I want to know. So I would volunteer the bones to Zellner for better testing if it could be proven. But Zellner can't even test the bones that were found in the quarry, which we all know about because those were given to the Hallback family as a part of Teresa's bones. So all that says to me is let's just surmise there was some crazy psycho serial killer, or Stephen Avery is some crazy psycho serial killer, and if there really were two separate sets of bones, let's get that other, let's test all the bones again and see if we can't figure out who those bones that were found in the quarry belong to. If they are Teresa's, fine, dandy, whatever. But without retesting, there's no way to find out 100% for sure. But like I said, the most damning thing I found out is just, in my eyes, is how the RAV4 got from the Avery property to the crime lab, and then magically it was unlocked. And then they want to sit there and say they didn't plant evidence, and we didn't do this, we don't do that. Like I said, I surmise that okay, it arrives at crime lab on the 6th. They do their thing, they do their inventory. What if at that point, after they did break into the RAV4 but didn't break into the RAV4, let's say they did find a key, the key that was found in Stephen Avery's, bedroom. I mean, how hard is it for them? Oh, we found this key. Bring it here or bring it back to the Avery place. We'll give it to, Colborn and Link to, bring it to the Avery house. While they're searching, blah blah blah. Before it's brought there, it's wiped down. So there's or disinfected, so there's no Teresa's DNA on it. Blah blah blah. Well, we need to get Stephen. So Link and Colborn are in the trailer. Oh look, there's Stephen's toothbrush, which one of Zellner's people, DNA experts said that was a possibility. And that and he also said that there was just way too much of Stephen's DNA on it, which is, suspect. So I mean, it would have, that's something that could have happened. The whole theory about there being two RAVs, I don't believe. If I were to put out a theory about the RAV4 and how it arrived on the Avery property, and if it wasn't already there, my theory is okay, they did find it. They did, because there's this other story about the RAV being spotted on 197, but it was like on the side of the road or in a cul-de-sac or something to that effect. I believe if they did, that was Teresa's car. Okay, they brought it to Calumet, impound. At this point, when it was spotted, I believe they already suspected Steven. They already, he's been their suspect kind of since day one. So they knew that they had to get it back on the Avery property. And then with all the, the incidences about them seeing lights on the property when there shouldn't have been lights, that was them probably trying to put the RAV4 or whoever trying to put the RAV4 on the property. That seems more likely than there being two RAV4s to me. The whole debacle about the towing, I don't know enough about all-wheel drive cars like the RAV4 was to make any judgment calls. But from what other people's research that I've watched, if the front was disconnected, which they say would take way more time than it took to get the RAV4 there, or to load it and all that stuff, then I don't know. I mean, but I do know that in one of the pictures, it shows what appears to be the rear drive shaft removed in one of the pictures that I've seen. So then you could essentially tow it from the front. The tow truck would lift up the front and you could tow it. That's what I would assume. The rear wheels would be free. But in that same picture, you'd figure if it was, because they said it was raining, because that's why they had to cover the RAV4 at the time. The area that the RAV4 was recovered from and subsequent areas, and I've been in salvage yards and they're not like the cleanest. Most of the time it's a gravel or a dirt or a muddy area. And the pictures that they show at the crime lab, the RAV4 just seems too clean, overall. I mean, it's dirty, and I would surmise that was from driving it to there. But then you figure if it was raining, it would, the day they removed it, you would figure that it would just be dirtier. And that drive shaft would have, picked up a chunk of mud or it would just look dirtier. And it doesn't. I mean, there's certain sort of photographs where they show it at the crime lab, and then like the one where they show it outside of the crime lab. I mean, it looks. I mean, I don't know if that's protocol from the washed vehicles, but it looks like the vehicle was like washed and clean and put in a pristine condition. And then they also show a photo at the crime lab of the supposed front blinker thing that was damaged on her car. They show that like under the seat, and it looks like the seat is kind of like propped up by that. And a lot of people have said, well, that that shouldn't be. So why did they do that? Again, that would be like tampering with the scene, if I may. I could see like lifting the seat up and having like a tech, like a crime tech, supporting it somehow, some way. But I just, you're essentially taking evidence and using it to prop up evidence. I mean, that just doesn't jive with me. It doesn't make any sense to why they would do that. So, that's just boggling. It just bothers me, and then the blood in the RAV seems to almost grow. I mean, it's none of Steven's fingerprints found anywhere on that RAV. But then there are fingerprints that are in it that aren't Teresa's and aren't Steven's. Why weren't these prints ever ran through CODIS? Why, is that what they're afraid of? If Zellner gets the RAV4 and she gets the prints, she's going to run it through and she's going to find out that it doesn't fit the narrative that the state wants us to believe. You know, that's the only thing I can surmise. You know, and then the battery, like I said, why wasn't that ever tested? I mean, for fingerprints and DNA, you know, I mean, that bothers me still. And then, you know, like I said, that whole report about the 5 girls, friends of Teresa's possibly finding the RAV4 on the same day, and then the RAV4 is mysteriously found by Pam Sturm, you know, not too far after that. You know, they needed to find that RAV4 on the property. They knew that because Stephen was already a suspect from day one. That I don't think has ever changed. You know, I mean, honestly, I think, you know, just the simple fact that, you know, at his trial, he wasn't allowed to, you know, there was a motion to not allow them to name other people they suspected. Why? I mean, what was the harm in that? You know, and then going back to the whole Jody thing, you know, they questioned her twice. And the second time they questioned her, you could kind of sort of clearly see that she, you know, didn't want to be there. It was kind of a last minute thing. And I believe it was just Weigert at that time, you know, kept telling her, oh, if there's anything you can think of or anything you want to talk about or if you need anything, just call me. You know, it was almost like he was hitting on her, to be honest. And like I said, then after Making Murder came out, she did that thing with Nancy Grace, and it was like her story completely changed, and she wasn't defending Stephen anymore. And I think that had a large part to do with, I believe she probably was still in a little bit of trouble, and it was an out for her. You know, she at that point probably wanted to just, you know, forget about everything and start over. I mean, I would. But yes, no, you know, so again, just to recap, there were no photos taken of the RAV4 at the actual AVERY salvage yard of the inside. You know, it wouldn't have been that hard to take a camera, especially if the crime lab was there. You know, they probably had some pretty good cameras at the time. Take some pictures of the inside, but I haven't seen any. So if there is any, you know, hey, let's release those. You can put all this to bed, just release them. And then if the doors were locked, how did they get unlocked? Why is there no documentation saying so-and-so from so-and-so used, you know, HB571, which is a Slim Jim, to unlock, you know, the driver's side door for, what was his name? For Ronald Graffi to photograph in the morning. There, you know, there's no, as far as I know, there's no documentation on that effect. So, as I said, you know, the more and more I look into it, more and more I look into, you know, listen to other people's theories and analyzations from, the guys that who have the Mind Shock True Crime podcast. You know, they're funny, but you know, they have some good points. It was a Confessions of a Murderer, I believe, or Making a Murderer, where it's a group of people that basically analyze various aspects of the Making Murder documentary, and you know, they also go through case files. You know, every time I watch one of these to learn more, I learn way much more, and then more questions appear. So hopefully I can you know, try to figure this out and get some more answers. But again, the more questions than answers is all I ever get. So hopefully we can keep looking. This is going to be kind of a short one today, so you know, if you like what I'm doing, tune in. If you don't like what I'm doing, then tune out.